He said it was just business when he fired me. But a few days later, I started seeing his car parked near my house. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, until he knocked on my door. No warning, no reason, just that same cold smile on his face. What did he want? And how did he know so much about my daily routine? Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. What I'm about to tell you sounds like something out of a psychological thriller, but I promise you, every word of this story is true. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why I had to move 3 states away and change my entire life. So grab some snacks because this is going to be a wild ride. It all started 6 months ago when I landed what I thought was my dream job at Morrison Tech Solutions. I was hired as a marketing coordinator, and my boss, Derek Sullivan, seemed like the ideal supervisor. He was charismatic, successful, and during my interview, he made me feel like I was exactly what the company needed. Derek was in his early 40s, always impeccably dressed, with this confident way of speaking that made you want to impress him. He had built the company from nothing, and everyone there either feared him or wanted to be him. During my first week, he personally showed me around, introduced me to clients, and even took me to lunch to discuss my bright future with the company. I thought I was lucky. I had no idea I was walking into a trap. For the first 2 months, Derek treated me like I was his star employee. He'd call me into his office for strategy sessions that lasted hours. He'd praise my work in front of the entire team, give me the best assignments, and constantly tell me how special my perspective was. But looking back now, I realized these weren't normal boss-employee interactions. He'd ask personal questions. Where I lived, if I lived alone, what my daily routine was like. He'd make comments about my appearance that seemed professional but felt off. That color really brings out your eyes, Maya. You should wear it more often. He started texting me outside of work hours. Just checking in, he'd say, or sending me articles he thought I'd find interesting. I told myself it was because he was invested in my professional development. I was so naive. Things started getting weird in month 3. Derek began showing up at the coffee shop where I grabbed my morning latte, the same small place I'd been going to for 2 years, 15 minutes from my apartment. What a coincidence, he'd say with that perfect smile. Mind if I join you? Then he started running into me at the grocery store I shopped at every Saturday. Always the same friendly surprise, always wanting to chat about work. When I mentioned it to my coworker Jessica, she gave me this look and said, "Maya, Derek lives on the complete opposite side of town. That's not a coincidence." But I didn't want to believe it. He was my boss. He was successful and respected. Surely I was just being paranoid. That's what he was counting on. My self-doubt, my need to rationalize his behavior. By month 4, Derek's behavior became more controlling. He started scheduling unnecessary meetings late in the evening, saying it was when he did his best thinking. During these meetings, he'd sit uncomfortably close, touch my shoulder when making points, and make comments about how dedicated I was to stay so late. He began criticizing my interactions with male co-workers. If I laughed at someone's joke or had lunch with a colleague, Derek would later pull me aside with concerns about maintaining professional boundaries or office gossip. He was isolating me, though I didn't see it then. The worst part was how he made me feel like I was the problem. "I'm just looking out for you, Maya," he'd say. "You're too trusting. People might get the wrong idea." He was grooming me to depend on his judgment, to question my own instincts. Everything changed when I started dating someone. His name was Alex, and I met him at a friend's birthday party. Derek somehow found out, probably through social media, and his whole demeanor shifted. Suddenly, my work wasn't good enough. Projects I'd been praised for were now lacking focus. He started documenting every small mistake, building a case against me. The final straw came when Alex picked me up from work one evening. Derek saw us through his office window, and the next morning he called me in for a performance review. He had prepared a detailed document of all my supposed failures dating back weeks, but I could see the real reason in his eyes: pure jealousy. "I'm disappointed in you, Maya," he said, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. I thought, you were different, more focused. The way he said it made my skin crawl. 2 days later, Derek fired me. He called it restructuring and said it was just business, nothing personal. But the way he looked at me when he said it, there was something almost satisfied in his expression, like he was punishing me for something. "You have real potential, Maya," he said as I packed my desk. "This doesn't have to be the end of our professional relationship. I'd be happy to provide references, maybe even some consulting opportunities. We should stay in touch." I just wanted to get out of there. I cleaned out my desk, said goodbye to my confused co-workers, and left. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I could move on, find a new job and forget about Derek Sullivan. I was so wrong. 3 days after I was fired, I noticed a familiar black BMW parked across from my apartment building. It was Derek's car. I'd seen it in the company parking lot every day for months. But surely it was just a coincidence, right? Maybe he lived nearby or was visiting someone. The next day, it was there again. Same spot, same time. Around 8 a.m. when I usually left for my morning run, I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Getting fired had made me jumpy, that was all. But on the third day, I saw him. Derek was sitting in the driver's seat wearing sunglasses, looking directly at my building. When he saw me notice him, he started his car and drove away. My hands were shaking as I called Alex. "You need to call the police," Alex said immediately. But what would I tell them? That my ex-boss was parked on a public street? I had no proof. He was actually stalking me. Over the next week, Derek's surveillance became more obvious. He'd drive slowly past my building multiple times a day. He'd park at the grocery store when I went shopping. I started seeing him everywhere, at the gas station, outside the library, even at the park where I walked my dog. He was learning my routine, mapping out my entire life. And he was making sure I knew it. This wasn't accidental. He wanted me to see him, wanted me to feel hunted. I started changing my schedule, taking different routes, varying my daily activities. But somehow, he always found me. It was like he had some kind of tracker on me. I checked my car obsessively, looked through my purse, even had Alex examine my phone for spyware. The psychological pressure was unbearable. I couldn't sleep, couldn't concentrate. Every time I left my apartment, I was looking over my shoulder. Derek was stealing my sense of safety, my peace of mind, and he knew it. One Tuesday evening, I was making dinner when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and Alex was working late. I looked through the peephole and felt my blood turn to ice. Derek was standing there in his perfect suit, holding a small gift bag, smiling that same charming smile he used to use in the office. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "Maya," he called through the door. "I know you're there. I can see your shadow. I just want to talk for a minute." I didn't answer. I couldn't move. What was he doing at my home? How did he even know which apartment was mine? "I brought you something," he continued, his voice still friendly but with an edge that terrified me. "A little apology gift for how things ended at work. I think we got off on the wrong foot." I stood there for what felt like hours, barely breathing, until I finally heard his footsteps walking away. When I looked out the window, I saw him place the gift bag by my door and return to his car. But he didn't leave. He sat there for another 2 hours, just watching my building. I waited until the next morning to retrieve the gift bag, and only after I confirmed Derek's car wasn't anywhere in sight. Inside was an expensive bottle of wine and a handwritten, "Tote Maya, I hope we can put our professional differences behind us. You're too talented to stay unemployed for long. I'd love to help you with your career transition. Give me a call when you're ready to talk. Derek." There was something about the note that made my skin crawl. The way he said, "I'd love to help," felt more like a threat than an offer. And how? Did he know I was unemployed? I hadn't posted about it anywhere. I showed the note to Alex and he immediately wanted to call the police. But again, what crime had Derek committed? Leaving a gift wasn't illegal. The note, while creepy, wasn't explicitly threatening. "He's testing boundaries," Alex said. "Seeing how far he can push before you react. This is going to get worse." Alex was right. This was just the beginning. After the gift incident, Derek became bolder. He started calling me from different numbers, sometimes the office, sometimes his personal phone, sometimes numbers I didn't recognize. When I stopped, Answering, he'd leave voicemails. "Maya, it's Derek, just checking in on you. I hope you're doing well. Call me back." "Hi, Maya, Derek again. I heard through the grapevine that you're job hunting. I have some connections that might interest you. Let's grab coffee." "Maya, you're being very unprofessional by not returning my calls. I'm trying to help you here." The tone gradually shifted from friendly to frustrated to angry. In the last voicemail, his voice was cold and threatening. "I know you're getting my messages, Maya. Ignoring me isn't going to make this go away. We need to talk." I saved every voicemail, documented every sighting, kept a detailed log with dates and times. I was building evidence, though I still wasn't sure what I could do with it. The situation reached a terrifying new level when I came home from a job interview to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My heart stopped. I knew I had locked it. I'd been obsessively checking locks since Derek started stalking me. I called Alex and waited in the hallway until he arrived. Together, we searched my apartment. Nothing seemed to be missing, but things were different. My laptop had been moved slightly, drawers were closed, but not quite how I'd left them. Someone had been in my space, touching my things. The most chilling discovery was in my bedroom. On my nightstand was a single red rose with another note. "You have a beautiful home, Maya. We really need to talk." That's when I knew Derek had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. He had violated my sanctuary, my safe space. I was no longer just being watched, I was being hunted. We called the police immediately. This time I had real evidence of a crime. Breaking and entering, stalking, harassment. Surely they would take action now. The police response was disappointing, but not surprising. Officer Martinez was sympathetic, but explained the challenges. Derek was wealthy, respected in the community, with no criminal record. The evidence, while compelling to me, was circumstantial in legal terms. "He's smart," Officer Martinez explained. "He's careful not to make explicit threats. The break-in is concerning, but proving he did it without witnesses or fingerprints is difficult. We can file a report and increase patrols in your area, but honestly, the best thing you can do is get a restraining order." I filed for the restraining order the next day. Derek's lawyer fought it, claiming I was a disgruntled employee making false accusations against his client. Derek played the victim perfectly, the successful businessman being harassed by an unstable former employee seeking revenge. The hearing was a nightmare. Derek sat there in his expensive suit, looking calm and professional, while I tried to explain months of psychological torture. His lawyer painted me as delusional, bitter about being fired, possibly mentally unstable. The judge granted a temporary restraining order, but warned that if I couldn't provide better evidence, it wouldn't be renewed. Derek didn't take the restraining order well. That same night, he violated it spectacularly. I was asleep when I heard someone trying my door handle, then knocking, soft at first, then increasingly aggressive. "Maya, open the door. We need to settle this like adults." His voice was different now, angry, unhinged, nothing like the controlled professional I'd known. This was the real Derek, the one he'd been hiding behind his perfect facade. "I gave you opportunities," he shouted. "I treated you special, and this is how you repay me, with lies and legal papers?" I was recording everything on my phone while Alex called 911. Derek continued his rant, revealing the depth of his obsession. "You think you can just move on? Find someone else? I made you who you are. I discovered your potential. You belong to me." The police arrived within minutes, but Derek was smart enough to disappear before they got to my door. However, my recording was crystal clear evidence of him violating the restraining order and making threatening statements. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I had real power against him. Derek was arrested the next morning, at his office. The recording, combined with months of documented harassment, was finally enough for serious charges: stalking, breaking and entering, violating a restraining order, and criminal harassment. But I knew this wasn't over. Even if Derek went to jail, he had resources, connections, and an obsession that wouldn't just disappear. Alex and I made the hardest decision of our lives. We packed up everything and moved across the country. I changed my name, closed all my social media accounts, and started over completely. It sounds extreme, but Derek had shown me what he was capable of when he felt I belonged to him. I couldn't take the risk that he'd find me again. The legal process took months. Derek's lawyer negotiated a plea deal, 2 years in prison plus 5 years probation with mandatory psychological counseling. He was also required to pay for my relocation expenses and therapy, though no amount of money could undo the trauma he caused. I learned later that I wasn't his first victim. 2 other former employees came forward during his trial with similar stories of harassment and stalking. Derek had a pattern, a type. Young women he could manipulate and control. It's been 8 months since I escaped Derek's psychological prison, and I'm finally starting to feel safe again. I found a new job. Alex and I are planning our wedding, and we're building a life free from fear. But this experience taught me things I wish I never had to learn. It showed me how predators operate, how they use their position of power to groom victims, how they isolate you from support systems, how they make you question your own instincts. If you're watching this and something feels familiar, trust that feeling. Document everything. Reach out for help. Don't let anyone convince you that you're overreacting or being paranoid. Derek is still in prison, and I hope he gets the help he needs to understand why his behavior was so destructive. But more importantly, I hope my story helps someone else. Recognize the warning signs before it's too late. Your safety is worth more than any job, any relationship, any social expectation. Trust your instincts, protect yourself, and never let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve peace and security in your own life. Thank you for listening to my story. If this video helped you or someone you know, please share it. And remember, you're stronger than you think, and you deserve to live without fear.